Today we have Moustafa Elrefaey, co-founder and executive chef of Zooba
رفاعي
restaurant. Sorry, Elrefaey?
رفاعي.
Oh, Elrefaey. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's the executive chef, co-founder, and partner of Zooba, homegrown in Egypt. He is the proud board member and treasurer of the Egyptian Chefs Association. He's also a certified executive chef of the American Culinary Federation. Recently, he was selected by the Egyptian Chefs Association to be the Egyptian ambassador to Chefs Without Borders, the humanitarian division of the World Association of Chefs Society. His culinary philosophy and passion reflect the growing trends towards a healthier and natural lifestyle. And by working with neighboring farmers to seek out the finest regional and local organic produce, he demonstrates the essence of his approach. So thank you, Moustafa, for joining us.
Thank you, Mehdi. Really appreciate it.
So I guess to start, I think something that a lot of people would just be interested in is maybe starting with your childhood. I saw an article where you mentioned that your grandmother was one of your first sort of avenues into cooking in the kitchen. So could you talk more about that, how you got interested in the kitchen, and maybe describe one of the favorite foods she made, or maybe a memory.
Sure. I was lucky. My mom is a AUC graduate, American University in Cairo. My dad was a doctor. So when I grew up between the city and the village. So I had the taste of both. My grandma was one of those farmers that she actually, she loved education. She loved to teach. She sent her kids all to colleges and stuff like that. The all doctors and engineers, including my mom, and she was an amazing lady. She was one of those strong grandmas, you know. So one of the strengths she had was actually cooking, and she used to use all the traditions, like the really old traditions. Like the stove was only to reheat food. She always cooked on what we call kanoon, which is basically just like a U-shaped place made with stones. And she used woods and hay, excuse me, and hay and stuff like that to cook. She used to use all the traditional oven, like what we call forni baladi, and she wakes up like by sunshine, and she makes 10 different types of bread. She have her own the chicken coop. We go grab the eggs in the morning. She makes everything in the house. So it was a shame if she actually goes and purchases anything from the store. So I grew up in this house, and she taught me a lot of her secrets and the recipes she used to make. And she used to make from anything. She makes delicious food. So, and believe it or not, 60% of the food she used to make was actually vegan.
Really?
Yeah. She was really creative with those kind of stuff. And those stuff, like now, like you didn't see him no more in Egypt, like cerise, goaded, it's like colored greens and stuff like that, like khobeza and all this. We used to use a lot at home. Now it's rarely you can find it.
Why do you think that is?
She was a great cook.
Sorry, why?
Because she cooks from her heart.
No, I find these foods as much anymore.
Because it's people look at it as a demeanor, like local or baladi. حاجة فلاحي, like it's not like Italian food. It's not like French or Japanese. They look at it like it's a demeanor. Yeah.
I see.
So I think it's like if you look at Egypt, like we have a yeast called خميرة النقطة. This yeast, I think it's been in Egypt for 1,000 years. It's the way they make the yeast. It's very close to what we know now as the sourdough. And it's really amazing, and that's what my grandma used to make. Like she never bought yeast; she always make her own yeast. She makes everything at home, yogurt, everything. Now nobody makes this. Like it's rarely find it.
I see. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I guess sort of on a similar note. Obviously, Zooba is inspired and sells several Egyptian street food staples, and I want to get to the restaurant's place within like Egyptian cuisine more broadly later. But I wanted to start by asking, I guess, again, sort of looking back to your childhood, what are your sort of favorite memories associated with street food growing up in Egypt? And I guess yeah.
The minute you said that, Mahdi, it just clicked to me like like around noon. That's what we call ayala, which means like that's the time like most of adults lays down or sleep in summertime, and that's when the ladies gets busy cooking lunchtime, and that's the smell of the streets between the baked the gratin rice and like the rose muammar. They cooking chicken or beef, or some houses cooking fish in the oven. The bread smell, all those smells just like makes me happy when I remember those days. It just like it was amazing. The smell, the simplicity of ingredients.
I see. And I mean, have you noticed, or have there been any sort of broad shifts in the way people interact with street food, or like the different sort of things that are being sold from when you were a child to now?
Yes. When I was a child, like ta'amiyya or falafel was actually, it wasn't a daily breakfast. It was like something that you buy during the souk. Souk was only like the market. It's only once a week. So basically, those are like carts that comes with the market. They put their kiosks in the market. It's like a really big space. And my village used to be like in every Wednesday. That's when you buy lots of candy, like and the candy was like only 2-3 types. Ta'amiyya was the baladi bread and all this. So it was like amazing to buy the street food. Like it was like it wasn't. We take it for granted. It's not like now. Now you find it in every corner.
I see. No, that's interesting. Because definitely, I feel like street food has definitely been a lot more revered. You have like a lot of Netflix shows really just highlighting street food. I don't think they have one about them like any sort of countries in the Middle East, North Africa yet. So hopefully, but I guess moving forward, I know you were formerly trained in the U.S. and I saw in an article you actually mentioned the prospect of cooking Egyptian food was quite daunting. It was sort of scary to you. Could you like elaborate about that and tell us more about why you felt that way initially?
I never cooked Egyptian food like a professional cooking until I came back to Egypt. So when I was in the States, I cook only for myself, for my friends, like small meals. Then when I start to cook a more Egyptian food, and just like it hits you, like it brings back memories. It just makes you happy when you do this. I think it's like I always wonder, like the builders of the pyramids, what did they eat? To carve all those temples in Egypt, what did they eat? Like 7,000 years ago, lots of those ingredients didn't exist. So I wanted to know. So it was actually, for me, it was just like, it made me hungry for more information and more to search more about everything in Egyptian cuisine.
And I guess, was there some sort of disconnect between your formal training? I think I saw that you had a lot of training in Italian cuisine in particular, but was there stuff you had to realize that you ended up learning as you were like getting more into cooking Egyptian food professionally?
Yes, because when I got back to Egypt, the Egyptian cookbooks was like really not telling you that much, and it was like always shortened information. So you have to go search yourself for more information, for more techniques, and connect with different people, and go from house to house. Look, one of my favorite trips was actually 3 years ago. I went to Upper Egypt, to the south, and we did a tour in a few villages in Said. I spent a few days in each house cooking with the ladies and the families and eating what they eat. It's just like, it's amazing to connect all those dots and have it in your hand, like, and create a recipe book that shows you what they actually eat. It's not just about the food ingredients and the pictures in the book. It's actually how they eat. Like, I learned that they have to eat once or twice a week vegan food, like what we call ordehi. Like, it means like no fish, no beef, no chicken. So, and the way the protocol of this, like what they eat next to it, like the aubergine, how they pickle it and use it for four different plates, and the which is a spice mix. That's like really, really main thing for them. 4 or 5 different kinds of bread, and the way they make them, and it's just like an honor thing, you know, like the way they drink tea, the way they drink coffee in every part of Egypt. It's just like amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And is your camera on, or we can't see you?
Oh yeah, I 1 second. I got so excited I turned it off.
No, completely fine. But yeah, I guess, could you talk more about your different travels in Egypt? Maybe I'm just wondering what region or maybe town, village that you saw that was quite unique in particular to like stuff you more associated to Egypt. And I guess expound on the other experiences you had.
I will split Egypt into different regions. Like I would say that Eastern Desert, the North Eastern Desert, which is like includes Sinai. This you will witness like food tastes and looks like, and very similar to what you will eat in Jordan and Palestine. It's a very similar food, very similar breakfast, same habits in eating and everything. If you go south, you will see Al-Ababda and Bashair, which is tribes that lives between Eritrea, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, and they drink their own coffee, the Jabana coffee, and they have their own habits, salati, and they cook a lot, like while they traveling. Then you have the Delta, which is where I came from, and we have our own unique bread, our own unique food items. But my favorite spot is actually Siwa, the oasis between Egypt and Libya. They eat. They are Amazigh. They are not. You are familiar with Amazigh, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, they are not Bedouins. They are more civilized. I'm not going to say civilized, but I would say they are more mellow than Bedouins. They are more educated. They are civilized, and the way they eat, they kept their traditions the same way for thousands of years. And the way they drink their tea, the way they eat, everything is just to blow your mind. I just enjoy going there.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, you don't get this sort of sense of the diversity, especially when you're not like living in Egypt. But I guess
we didn't talk about the Nubians or the Saidis. You know, like it's a whole different culture and a whole different way of food and language and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of your travels, what was the decision-making process in actually like devising the menu for Zooba? Like, did you want to highlight these different aspects, or were you trying to address broader themes?
It's more for me, actually. It's more like Zooba, we benefit from the street food concept. So basically, I search for street food all the time, and this is what we benefit in Zooba from. But personally, as Mustafa, I just enjoy doing this. It's like you're finding hidden treasures, you know, like every time you dig in Egypt, you'll find a different recipe, a different way they eat, a different habit, a different information. It just like will blow your mind. So I just enjoy doing this personally.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess this leads us to sort of talking about the story of Zooba. I know it was a venture between you and Chris Khalifa. And yes. I guess, how did you know each other? How did the concept become to be? What was the initial story of the opening?
Okay, so I came back from Egypt. I was working for one of the most famous resorts in Egypt. It was I brought actually Gordon Ramsay to be working with me to do the opening for the place. Okay. Yeah, it was like really nice place. Then I met Chris Khalifa back in 2011 after the revolution in Egypt and all this big mess in Egypt. So we were talking, me and him, through friends, and he mentioned that his dream is actually to open a restaurant. He's a finance, you know, like he's genius when it comes to finance and marketing and stuff like that. But he doesn't know how to cook or do anything like that. So he was talking to me. I told them this is my dream as well. I'm trying to do something like this. So we did talk about it. I went home. I saw my wife. I was super excited. I told her, you know what? I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna start this business with Chris. And she called me crazy, and she called her dad crying, and my dad as well. So I actually had to take my wife to a meeting between me and Chris to convince her that it's the right decision to open Zooba. And actually, we convinced her, and here we go. 10 years later, we have Zooba, and we have 11 branches between 3 continents.
Yeah, no, mashallah.
Thank you.
And I guess, what were the challenges you two faced in the early years of the restaurant?
It was a revolution again. The whole country was a mess. So between suppliers, you coming out from a revolution that like everybody was in a shock. Nobody knew what to do. That was the biggest challenge. So everybody knows me or Chris was giving us advice. That's not the right time. That's not the right time. So we sat down and we said, when is the right time? Like there is no perfect time. So we decided to open. We went to Zamalek and we rented the most nice shop that we thought it would be good for location. We chose the name and we worked on the menu. And we were crossing our fingers because we didn't know how successful it will be, and we didn't have an office at the time. So I used to park my car. Like if you are familiar with Zamalek, there is a big bridge in Zamalek. So I used to park my car in front of the restaurant under the bridge, and me and Chris would sleep in the car, and we just do all our paperwork, everything, banking, and everything in the car. And like that was our office for a whole year. That was one of the challenges. But from day one, we knew we wanted to be an institution. We didn't want to be just one restaurant. We wanted to spread the Egyptian culture, the Egyptian street food. We know we have really good food in Egypt. It just need to be represented right, marketed right. So we were working on it, and we benefited from the older generation that actually built some really good restaurants in Egypt, like Gad, Baghl, all those old restaurants, like they're doing really good, Abu Tariq. So we think we working together to present the Egyptian cuisine.
And it's interesting you say that, because as a Moroccan, I think Morocco has done very well in terms of marketing its cuisine to the rest of the world. As opposed to like the other side of my family, Algeria, where even though we both eat a lot of the same stuff, Algeria is not known for its cuisine. So I guess, and this comes to this London Falafel Festival in 2016. What do you think have been the challenges in terms of making Egyptian cuisine a more like staple known cuisine outside of Egypt and not be associated? I think when a lot of people think of Arab food outside, they think of Shami food. They think like that's a lot of
Lebanese, actually, not Shami, Lebanese. It's
Lebanese.
Sure. Yeah, that's what Arabic food, they say Lebanese. They don't even mention Syria in the topic, which is very clever. That's what, again, it goes back to marketing. Lebanese are very clever all the time. They know how to market their product, and that same way like the Israeli, like they know how to market their product as well. So they took our cuisine out abroad to the Western atmosphere, and they marketed the food really well, while we were here in Egypt not doing anything about it. So so when we got invited to the festival in London, was actually they invited all the restaurants, from all the countries, like they make falafel, and that was actually by the UN. United Nations decided to throw this competition to show the world that beans can be used, and they wanted to push the people to use the more vegan protein, like beans, fava beans. So that was the biggest challenge, that actually people know falafel from the perspective of Lebanese and Syrian falafel, the golden bowl, the one made with chickpeas, not the green patty that we make in Egypt. So it was a challenge for me to in the beginning, you know. So I went to London. It was a tough competition for 6 hours. After 6 hours, we won the competition by vote and a half. So that was a tough one.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, that's great.
And it was tough one. You know, if I saw the other competitors at the beginning, I didn't see anybody because I was by myself. So I was cooking the whole time. Like my eyelashes was stuck because of the oil from the frying falafel. But if I saw I was going to get intimidated. You know, they have really, really well set up, like between the competitors, they were really perfect. I don't know how I won until today, to be honest.
And were there a lot of like tamiya, like people people making tamiya in the competition, or was it really just you and then like everyone else making a chickpea based falafel?
There was a Palestinian chef. He was making the half chickpeas, half fava beans, which is they are really familiar with. The Israeli as well was doing this. He owns a restaurant called the Bell in London. They have like 7 or 8 branches at the time. The Syrian chef, all the establishments I was competing against, they were actually they have restaurants in London. So it was really tough for me.
I see. Wow.
Because I shipped all my beans from Egypt. I shipped all my ingredients from Egypt to London, and I cooked in my brother's backyard.
I see. And in terms of just this more international presence, so when did the American branch open in New York City?
2019.
2019. And how, I guess, what was the impetus to make you go international? I guess, how many branches did you have in Egypt at the time? And then what was the thought process and be like, okay, I think we have the capacity to open a store in New York City?
We had, at the time, we had 6 restaurants in Egypt. We already signed a contract in KSA in Saudi Arabia, but we didn't open at this time. So we decided, me and Chris, because me and Chris were Egyptians, but were American as well. So we decided to go to America because it's easier for us, work like for you know, paperwork and all this. So we went to New York. It's the most competitive city in the US, and actually one of the most elite cities. Like London, Tokyo, and New York are the cities that have like the most unique food in the world. So we went to New York. When we opened, like 2020, I think before the pandemic, we made it to the list of the best 100 restaurants in New York City. Then 2 weeks later, we had to shut down because of Corona.
Right.
That was very ironic, but we survived, alhamdulillah. And we opened our second branch in New York very soon.
Oh, where was it going to be?
We are in Times Square, inshallah.
Times Square, inshallah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I live in Brooklyn, so it's good to know.
Oh, nice. Oh, coming soon.
Exactly. No, that's really interesting. And I mean, I guess in terms of talking more about the food, I guess what are the things that you have to offer that might be the most unique, that you might not find most often, like people might not associate as like a staple street food of Egypt?
Like Hawashi, for example, it's like the pressed burger. It's a baladi bread, which is made from like wheat and bran, and we stuff meat, vegetables in it, and it's pressed, and it's very delicious. And it's like 50% of the components inside is vegetables, so it has like really unique flavor. In Egypt, you will see different styles, so we have our own style. It's slightly different than what you will get in Egypt. We did a good impact when we opened when we started the Hawashi in New York, and it's actually cheese Hawashi is our top seller item in New York.
Really? No, that's cool.
Yeah.
In terms of, I was just looking over the menu, and this is something sort of just interested in. What is the place of Tajin in Egyptian cuisine? Or Tajin?
Tajin?
Yeah.
Tajin is anything cooked inside the oven, basically.
Okay.
anything you finish in the oven, we call it Tajin. It's not like your Moroccan or your North African style Tajin. It's more Tawagin is okra is you see like the frika with shrimp. We do different things like that. It's all baked in the oven.
I see. In terms of the sauces, I know you have a tahini, you have a labneh, you have also this beetroot. I think you also have a harissa. What? If you could just talk more about that. And something I noticed, and maybe you could correct me of this, at least in my experience, Egyptian food isn't this like spiciest in terms of like chilies and stuff. But then when it comes to like stuff I've had in terms of street food, you get these really spicy hot sauces, which I thought was really interesting.
Like it depends where you at in Egypt, like Upper Egypt or the South, we eat lots of spicy food. I think because of the hot weather or something like that. Some parts of Egypt actually they eat spicy food, but we are not known like North Africans for the harissa and the lots of spices you guys use. So I came up with a version of hot sauce. It's basically raisins and rosemary peppers with Aswani chili flake, and we made this really unique harissa, and it's really good. I love it. The hibiscus beetroot tahina. This is what I used actually in London for the falafel, and it was actually the color and the taste and the sweetness from the beetroot and the tanginess from the hibiscus. It made this sauce really lovely.
No, cool.
So thanks for the team. Like we sit down, me and my team, and we decide like what we want to do next time, and we talk about colors, flavors, and applications, and how we apply those flavors to the food. And I think I have a really good team working on this all the time.
Do you have seasonal items or items that might be more specific? Like, do you have items that you could only find at the US branch, or the items you can only find in particular branches in Egypt?
Yes. We have the Badawi beef in New York, which is basically it's like a pulled beef, like Badawi style, like what you eat in the desert here in Egypt. We make it with vermicelli rice, like ruz al-shariya, and it's got like the hibiscus tahina and like pickled lemon sauce. It's really lovely. We have the Dawood Basha, which is basically an Egyptian meatball, again with the baladi salad and arugula, gargir. The tamarind chicken cooked with tamarind, and it's different than what we have in Egypt. What we have in Egypt is more like a shawarma, like a shredded chicken. In New York, it's more like big chunks from the thigh. So, like U.S. is different slightly than Egypt. Saudi Arabia is identical to Egypt.
I see. And then in terms of like Aish Baladi, what makes it special? What is its sort of place in Egyptian cuisine? What's it?
It's really hard to make.
Okay.
The dough is like really wet. It's almost 1-to-1, so 1 water to 1 flour. So if there is any baker and listening to us, they will understand how wet is the dough. It's very hard to handle, and it has to be handcrafted. There is no machines to do it, so you have to have the skill. So picture this. I have to go to one of my bakers, Ghazal. He's one of my opening team as well. I have most of the opening team still work for Zooba 10 years later, alhamdulillah. So Ghazal taught me how to make bread. So I went to New York. I trained Americans who never tasted Egyptian cuisine how to make bread, and they make bread. I'm not going to say it's the same. It's actually better than Egypt because they have better flour in the US.
I see. Oh, that's interesting. And then
it is very interesting.
I know we wanted to highlight a specific dish, and I actually sort of had a question about this. As a Moroccan, I know bisara very well, and I wonder how I didn't know Egyptians eat it, or if this was something sort of your own creation. So talk to us more about this dish.
Bisara is like the Christian Egyptians. They fast almost 250 days a year. It's like really they are very strict about fasting, and during the fasting they eat only vegan food. So one of the main things, they have to be really creative. So falafel food, basara as very, very important to them. And each region in Egypt, they have their own ways of making basara. They all have the same topping, which is the fried onion, like you see in the picture. But in like in the northern side, we use coriander, like fresh corianders. And Said, they use dried molokhia. They use harith at, which is the yellow lentils. They smash it with the beans. They do it with tomatoes as well. They have different styles of making it, and it's all tastes really good.
I see. No, that's really cool. And I guess going back to Zooba more broadly, I guess now that you're very established, you have all these different branches in Egypt. What do you say Zooba's place is right now in terms of like whatever we want to call the Egyptian street food scene, and where do you want to see it go?
I want to see more Egyptian restaurants outside the country. I want to see more Egyptians getting aggressive and going, and instead of going to the Arab countries, to go to Europe and go like largely to the US. We actually, as Zooba, we benefit from this because we don't want to get the hit every time trying to educate people how to eat Egyptian cuisine and what's Egyptian cuisine. We want people actually to start to participate with us and show the world what's Egyptian cuisine. And this is part of the marketing. And other countries like Thailand or like even in Morocco, the government supports like different festivals, like the Couscous Festival and different festivals in the country to support food and cuisine. We want to see this more in Egypt. And as Zooba, we definitely will benefit from this.
Mm. And, you know, I was looking at your main website, and all over it had different sort of snippets from different news outlets from the West. And I just wanted to get how you felt about this. So one CNN says reinventing Egyptian street food, but then also I think The Independent said making Cairo street food cool. And I guess my question is, what wasn't cool about Cairo street food before?
Actually, this is their own words.
Right.
Like no, in our opinion, Egyptian street food is always cool. Like the people who actually started this, like Tabi and all those really, really old generation that started this Egyptian food, is still really, really cool, and they still dominate the market. We are just like, we are tackling a little bit of segment, but you know, the newspaper, they have to put their own words to make it sound like really sexy and get you to read it, but
of course
we never say that.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, I mean, this is something I've sort of been thinking about. I mean, I cook a lot too, and I've noticed that, especially if you want to do stuff in terms of we either in like food content creation or even going to actually be like a professional chef, you have to have some sort of like grounding in a European cuisine of sorts. And there seems to be, at least in the West, and I think in other parts of the world too, that there's a reverence for cuisines like Italian food, like French food. And we don't have this reverence for other cuisines, especially like, I think we could say Egyptian food doesn't have this same sort of status. And I think that's not, there's no good reason for it. And I guess I wanted to get your sort of take, you know, you've been in Italian cooking, and now you're back cooking this Egyptian food. What sort of is it about, you know, a cuisine like Italian food, we say it's simple, that's sort of its charm. But why can certain cultures get away with, you know, either charging certain amounts and having this sort of mystique around them, while other cultures need to work a lot harder?
Sure. There's two different parts for this. You know, first part, عقدة الخواجة, which we all have in the Arab countries. We all think that anything comes from the Western atmosphere is better than what we have. They are smarter than us. Like this is what we face always when we go to compete, even in football. You know, like we always get defeated because we think they are better than us. They are blonde, they blue eyes. You know, they are way stronger, they are way better. Which is not true all the time. You know, like sometimes we have like really good things that we can actually offer and show the world that we have potential. Egypt in particular, you know, like we had a downfall or like a gap happened through history. I know that you guys invited Minna Dori at one point, Dr. Minna, and she definitely she did talk about the gap. Like we back in the medieval time in Egypt, we used to have sweet and sour dishes. We used to have like lots of food made with chicken, and we use rose water and nuts, which is unusual for modern Egyptian cuisine or what we eat right now. So there is a big gap in history, and then it's followed by poverty that we got for a long time in Egypt, affected the creativity and made us look like we are just a Tamaya people. You know, like we have our cuisine is really have really good depth, but you can see it because of the gap we had.
Hmm. I see. And I guess just talking about within Egypt itself, where do you see? I don't know. I guess where do you see street food going? What I guess where do you see Zooba's place? I mean, who is Zooba for in terms? What are you trying to convey to Egyptians, and in terms of the like the menu, the food, the story, and where is its place like vis-a-vis like more traditional street food vendors?
We didn't invent the wheel. We just, I will say, we refined some of the taste. We cleaned it up a little bit. In terms of packaging, in terms of marketing, in terms of offerings, ingredients. In Egypt, lots of people used to think of Egyptian like street food, that you will eat really good food, tastes really lovely, but you will get sick after a while. We wanted to change this perspective, and I think we did really well for 10 years now. Since we opened in 2012, there is 6,000 street food concepts opened in Egypt. So I think this is a good answer.
And I guess, I don't know how to word this exactly. Let me think about it. But we have a sort of quick fire Q&A.
Sure.
So just sort of rapid fire. Let's just see what you have to say. What are you reading, watching right now?
Really watching where in the queue?
No, like reading a book or watching a TV show.
Yes, I'm reading a book about Albert Hall, which is a traveler. He came to Egypt back in the 18th century, and he was talking about different things in Egypt, negative and positive. And I just love how detailed he is. He was a monk who came to Egypt from Ireland, and spent a while. He lived for a while in Egypt and Palestine. And the book just is blowing my mind. He's talking about hotels and details in hotels, and how what we used to eat, and people what they used to dress like. It's just an amazing book.
Interesting. And also, sort of coming back to me, when you were thinking about opening in the U.S., did you sort of think about the pitfalls of describing your food as Mediterranean? Because at least here, you'll find a lot of like Lebanese, like Palestinian restaurants who will say they're Mediterranean food, but at the end of the day, people in the West really consider they think of Greek food or Italian food as Mediterranean. And I guess, do you think there is some sort of use in trying to expand the term Mediterranean to include North Africa, or is there really like, is it too entrenched?
It's the easy ride. If you want to take the easy ride, you just mention Mediterranean cuisine and people will accept it.
Right.
Middle Eastern as well. But we wanted to go as Egyptian, and that was like a debate between the whole team in Egypt before we go to the US, because I personally wanted to go as Egypt, but our marketing team thought, let's not flag Egypt, let's flag just we are coming from Cairo, and let's get the people to try the food first before we start to force Egyptian. But we went with the names, like Ta'amiyya was called Ta'amiyya, Hawashi was called Hawashi. So we try to stick as much as we can to the names we have in Egypt. It would be easier if we have more restaurants that have the same names and everything.
I see. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Who would you love to shadow for a day, past or present?
Who I love to shadow for a day, like in my profession or any profession.
In any sort of, yeah, it could be in profession or anything.
Mohamed Salah, the football player, I just like him.
Cool. And what is your guilty pleasure midnight food choice?
Oh my God, don't go there.
But we need to know.
حلاوة حنية. You know the halva, حلاوة طحينية.
Okay.
It's just I can eat the whole container at night while I'm drinking milk or drinking water. I just then after I finish it, I just feel so guilty. I go to the next day to the treadmill, then I go back to doing the same halawa again. I don't know. Just
yeah. And lastly, what dish reminds you most of home?
What dish reminds me? Mahshi crumb. You know, like the stuffed cabbage.
Yeah.
The smell, the way it's done. Even like when I eat the stuffed cabbage, they have a vegetarian version, and in Poland, when I eat, actually, I just hit me that I remember Egypt.
And then I think that's really it for me. I really appreciate you taking the time just to answer my sort of ramblings. But if anyone in the audience had any sort of Q&A, Ruqayya, I don't know if you wanted to unmute people, or if you all want to type something in the chat, I can read it. But let me see. Oh, I see if there's questions. So let's see. I want to know. Okay, so Pierre is asking, do you have plans to open a restaurant in Canada?
In Canada, yeah, actually, we're looking at the big part of my team actually went to Vancouver. They've been working there for almost 4 years now, and they're convincing us, me and Chris, and we actually will visit sometime this year, and we're thinking to open a restaurant there. Yeah, definitely, Canada is one of the countries we're thinking of.
Okay. And then we have another question. They want to know, how was the decision taken to hire an international agency for your branding and stuff when there's a lot of local talent?
We wanted to explore how people look at us differently. That was the main thing. You know, like we did try with different agencies in Egypt, and everybody was just doing it like we are talking to ourselves. So we wanted to get a different person. Like when we got Jessica Walsh, actually, she came to Egypt for 1 week, and she walked from, if you know, Al-Azhar all the way to Zamalek, all the way to Halwan. She did lots of walks in Egypt to come with all those different ideas. Then we went back, and our team is the Egyptian, so we were consulting everything with our team from Egypt.
Okay. And then we sort of addressed this, but Manat Allah didn't have internet. The question is, again, sort of, why do you think Egyptian food in general is not as known outside of Egypt as, for example, Lebanese or Moroccan?
It's the marketing thing. We don't market our food enough. We are not so proud of our food. We don't try to push it. You know, like every time we try to open a new restaurant or like a fine dining, we just buy more expensive plates and more expensive copper Tajin and stuff like that. We don't look at the roots, and we don't do enough researches to open this. I get more consulting fees to open Egyptian cuisine in London and Europe more than anything else. In Egypt, every time I get this, people want to open a copycat from Zooba.
And I guess in terms of, what is the general landscape that you see in terms of Egyptian cuisine in the diaspora? Like, do you have a general sense and opinion of the kinds of restaurants Egyptians are opening and what you would like to see more, like in the West?
Definitely, yes. We deserve to be awarded a Michelin star in somewhere in the States, like for Egyptian cuisine. Like we want to go all in. Like we have different parts of Egypt, like their food is like phenomenal, but nobody's trying to connect the dots and take all this abroad and put a nice restaurant, or even in Egypt. Like when we get approached to do in one of the monuments or anything like that, and we sit with the government, and they want Paul and they want French restaurants. They don't want to get the headache from Egyptian restaurants, which is sad, but that's the fact right now.
I see. And now we have a question from Yusra. She's asking, how did you come up with the name Zooba? And when you opened the first store in Zamalek, did you feel like you were taking a risk with prices? she says, I remember thinking, who's going to pay this much for koshari? But then I did, and she said,
ask her if she knows my wife. My wife said the same thing. Okay, so if you think of koshari, for example, koshari, to make one plate of koshari, it's 9 sub recipes. So to make koshari, you have to go through boiling tupeti pasta, boiling spaghetti, cooking rice, cooking vermicelli noodles, boiling lentils, boiling chickpeas, making tomato sauce, making shatta, making the da'a, frying onions, all this headache to make one plate. And the food cost for it is not that cheap. Now, if you go to the local restaurants like Abu Tariq, Sayyid Hanafi, and all those, they increased the prices rapidly because they figured out, like, oh my God, we're doing something right. We're still in volumes, but we are not doing our food costs properly. So we figured this from the beginning because this is, which is good for this. So I knew that to survive, you have to cost your food perfectly, and that's what we did. This is what answer, like, that's why, I always use this good example, Mahdi. Like, sometimes I see people walking to Zooba holding a cup of coffee from Starbucks or any other local brand from the third wave coffee. They cost from 60 to 90 pounds per cup of coffee, which is basically milk with some water and coffee. Cost-wise, it's like, including the cups, doesn't go over 7 pounds. And they pay 90 pounds. But if you come to koshari plate, weighs 700 grams and have all this details to get it done, and they say it's expensive because it's 40 pounds. People need to be more thinking of Egyptian food, not have to be cheap. It can be slightly priced right, and it tastes good. That's the whole idea. Going back to Zooba question, Zooba is a female name. It's Dala. It's a nickname for Zainab, and it's a very common name in Egypt. There was an old soap opera from Mahmoud Yassin, Allah yarhamu, Iddi Zooba Za'a, the song. It's a very, very funny name that Egyptians love. It's a very common name, and there is 2 O's in the middle. It starts with a Z, ends with an A. So it was really cool name. So that's why we call it Zooba.
I see. No, and I mean,
you know what's funny, Mahdi? When we called it Zooba in the beginning, all our team was refusing the name because it's بلدي شوية. يعني it's not like Paul, it's not like Italiano, it's not like this, you know, like, so they didn't want to change their profile job and their Facebook or anything like that until like a year later.
No, I mean, I think what you're saying is really interesting because I think in a certain sense, you know, you can go to New York and you can get what you think it should be a cheap plate of pasta, but it's going to be $25. And
yes.
But I think a lot of it is really just, you know, Italian Americans asserting themselves, saying, you know, our cuisine deserves, this is what our cuisine deserves, to have this sort of respect and everything. And I think there needs to be more of that with other people.
Mahdi, there is a restaurant across from Zooba, sells a plate of pasta, spaghetti pasta with bolognese for 150 pounds.
Wow.
And it's like 150 grams and 75 grams of sauce. And they like when it's nonsense, you know, like when you think of food costs and all this, it's actually very expensive. Like we buy the top quality beans, top quality lentils, top quality rice. So it costs money.
No, definitely. But in terms, I'm not sure if anyone else in the chat had any questions. I'm done on my end, but let's see. I think we're almost out of time. If any of you all want to follow Moustafa, here is his Instagram. And then in terms of, is there anything else you wanted to plug in terms of social media?
No, just my Instagram.
Just your Instagram. Cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you all can send feedback. Let us know. Let us know what you thought of this event, but also let us know what sort of events you want to see in the future. And again, all this sort of stuff is powered by you. So again, go to afikra/support.com. Everything we do is just purely by donation. And we're 50% of the way there in terms of the campaign. And of course, stay in touch. We have Instagram, we have a Facebook, and of course, email us if you're interested in doing some sort of collaboration. And of course, we have the website as well. But I would, again, like to thank you, Moustafa. Thank you for taking the time, even though
Thank you.
you're out and about. But thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Hopefully, my questions made a little bit of sense. But I really
no, that was really actually. Thank you for except for the halawa tahaniya one.
No, but I really learned a lot. I hope everyone in the chat learned a lot. Stay in touch. We'll be definitely having more sort of events like this. And
thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Keep in touch, guys. If you have any questions, hit me a DM and on Instagram. I'll get back to you right away. Best of luck to everyone. Thank you, Mahdi. Thank you, Afikra. Thank you, Matbakh. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
No, it's our pleasure. Thank you.